Hi, I am WormFood. Memento Mori, remember we die. I'm Nick and I am your host. So I wanted to start today off with a quote from the Athenian scholar, citizen of the world, Diogenes. He is quoted as, "I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance." That is very profound whenever we reflect to ourselves that we can all accept that we only know how little we truly know. So let's talk about best part and worst part of the month. Best part, I started a new branch for my full-time job. I am very excited. First 8 weeks of this are classes. I am not disclosing where I work, but I do work with aircraft, and it's very interesting seeing the repairs as they progress. Worst part, unfortunately, I have been spending way too much money. Um, I am down to $100 in my savings account, and I still don't have a car. I still don't. I still am no closer to large aspects of my end of year goal. But that being said, it is very fun. Sorry about that. I'm peaking a lot with vocals. Today is episode 2. What is philosophy? While we're discussing, I do want to say big thanks to Hank Green and the video Crash Course into Philosophy, because this is where a lot of the inspiration came from. But I'm wanting to do a more in-depth and elaborate discussion. It is a way that we think, how we build, and how we elaborate on our thoughts. We are not exploring the idea of why is the sky blue, where it is telling us that reflection of light on water particles up in the air is saying the sky is blue. It is a way of thinking about questions from Hank Green and Crash Course. We have metaphysics, the nature of reality. Example, is the sky blue? And surface level, it's arbitrarily, yes, the sky is blue. But can we really be sure about that? This is where epistemology comes in, which is the study of knowledge. So, is the sky really blue? The idea of this stems from the idea, if the sky is blue, do we only associate it with the idea of blue because we're taught the color? Or is blue a statement that we already know? It is a very heavy basic for this. And from this, we go to value theory, where we have the idea of ethics versus aesthetics. And I'm not talking about aesthetics on your Pinterest boards or aesthetics on whatever your goth core or country core aesthetic is. No. It is the discussions of beauty and nature. Ethics is the discussion of morality. Is it wrong for me to disagree with you that the sky is blue? I'm using the sky is blue as a very broad blanket statement, and it is very, very goofy. Under ethics and aesthetics, they can go hand in hand, but we are on the foundational idea of logic, fallacies, and contradictions. Logic is how we are to discuss and argue our points. We do not go into a discussion blind, and we try to do our research. But logic comes from a very home idea. We don't want to constantly be found that what we're saying is incorrect, and us as humans will naturally defend and argue these points. And I want to be very clear whenever I say argue in this show that I do not mean argue as in raising voices or fighting. I mean discussion at a logical idea. Fallacies. It is contradictions and unreasonable logic that does not resolve the argument. So, the example of is the sky blue? The idea is that if you say yes or no, we can have a discussion on it. If the sky is blue, how do we define the color blue? This becomes a epistemology discussion and discussion at the metaphysical level where we have to look at it more than the base design. Well, if the sky is blue, how do we know the sky is blue? Without looking at just science, we can agree that most people will say the sky is blue. But what if the perception to another person is that the blue sky that we all know is green? Well, at that point, were they raised and taught to believe that the color green is blue? And so, if they were taught to believe that green was blue, is green the true color of the sky? But we were all taught incorrectly. This is a very, very non-nuanced topic, because you'll look up and go, oh no, the sky is obviously blue. And we can agree to that. I will not argue that. But it is to show how vast the perspectives of the world can be. Now, back to that quote that I started this episode off with. Diogenes from Athens, Greece. I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance. Diogenes was a Greek philosopher who had the pleasure of meeting Alexander the Great. And whenever Alexander the Great offered to give him anything in the world while he was resting under a tree looking up to the vast, beautiful sky, Diogenes said to Alexander the Great, could you move over so I can see the sun? truly a humble man. Diogenes was given the name the first cynic and father of cynicism. He is wise beyond years, and yet actively he was actively contradicting and fighting societal norms and standards. Diogenes faced against constant mocking for the way that he lived. Cynicism is the rejection of modern belief and ideas. Back whenever he was the first, he was attributed to barking dogs. A person who would use the bathroom, groom himself, and even pleasure himself out in public. It is wild on how much he endorsed his own self pleasure. And his followers were his dogs and his packs. He ended up leading one of the greatest cultural changes because he had inspired multiple people, such as Frederick Niehaus. I will happily go into him if you guys want on a later episode and the tragic story that followed him. But he had also inspired the hipsters in more recent times as they constantly went against the status quo, and it was a new birth of cynicism. It is rejection of traditional values and morality. It was truly a wonderful time to experience life. The hipsters were inspired by him to reject societal norms. Modern cynics today reject social norms, or they would reject political policy. Nothing is wrong with conforming, but Diogenes believed the best way was reconnecting with your roots, which for everyone to a degree is the earth. Diogenes and his men did not live in homes. They carried cloaks and went from town to town, traveling as a pack of dogs. Another quote from him: I am called a dog because I fawn on those who give me anything. I yelp at those who refuse, and I set my teeth in rascals. He would stick with the people who worked with him. He would swoon over a person giving him a piece of bread. He yelled at those who refused his ideas, and those who physically opposed him were fought back with. If not physically, then mentally. It was absolutely a time to listen in disbelief to what he said. So, for more in-depth and experience with this, let's take modern cynics and their views and compare them to Diogenes. Everybody nowadays, if they can afford to, most of the time they would have choose to live in their own house, in a home. Even the most cynical of people who think that anything can be taken and everything has a catch, Diogenes would not accept that. We, as modern people and modern cynics, would happily jump at the idea of getting a house. We, as people, are nice and conditioned to cooked foods and social function and larger than life events. Even cynics, they'll have social media, but I'm not saying that there are cynics who refuse to use it. Most people use social media. Diogenes would burn every electronic that he had owned and criticize everyone. So, where does this divide begin? And where is the build off from this? Diogenes did not have much. He was a builder of thought. The thought that he had was to reject modern norms. Friedrich Niehaus posed a idea of him in his book, Thus Spoke Zamasutra, where a man similar to him runs into a public square and screams, "God is dead, and we have killed him." During the time of Friedrich Niehaus, he was born right before World War II. And during the war, his books were used as propaganda. So, the idea of this broke into rejection of social norms, used as political fuel for a fire, and it was very tense and very, very awful. I would really hope that after doing the research on him that people would be willing to give Friedrich Niehaus an actual read once they understand that he didn't mean what people said. But I digress from Diogenes. Frederick elaborated on the idea, but started with a natural divide. Frederick lived in a home. He rejected the societal standards while still socially confined to the concept of it. Now, once Friedrich Niehaus had his course, during the back and forth of counterculturalism back in the 70s and early 80s, back whenever hippies were very much prevalent. The counterculture, although being a source of culture themselves, ended up becoming a very detailed thought and detailed progression into the idea of how everything should revert back to nature. You had marijuana brownies, acid trips, mushrooms. The idea that drugs weren't bad, well, the stress of college and needing of college degrees to progress in life had more people looking at ethics and philosophy. I feel more people need to, but to completely defy cultural norms is such a challenge. Everything has been done before. What makes our generation different? We will have to wait and see. And this is where the beauty of everything is going to come from. My generation is just now hitting 23, 24 years old. I just turned 21 this month. And we have so many different thoughts and beliefs and outreach. How do we express it? We are given every opinion and every known source of history online. We cannot have our own revolution in thought because we have everybody else's in history right now. But that being said, we are given the guidelines of thought and guidelines of the future. By learning the mistakes from the past, we can gather and learn. It would be absolutely one of the best cultural changes if we all could understand the morality and the ethics and how to properly talk. Because the talking, I feel, in modern day has went to the crap house because we are collectively together online, but we are so socially drained. We need to learn how to reconnect again. And once we do that, and once we shy away from the internet, this is where my modern cynicism belief comes in. Once we shy away from the internet and large scale influence and focus on smaller communities, may we end up in a better spot to learn and to develop real connection again. I'm not saying the internet is bad, and I do want to preface this. After doing research into this and some very heavy subjects, philosophy is influenced heavily by three things. One, the societal norms and standards that we focus on. Back in ancient Greece, as an example, they had construed and they only had to worry about a small percentage of themselves. Modern day, we have overly connected. I could have friends in Beijing, Kyoto, Greenland. I don't know any cities in Greenland. That's why I'm not specifying a region there. The Netherlands, Denmark. We could have so many online friends with different beliefs. But now we are also heavily, heavily influenced by the political agendas of their time. Athens versus Sparta and Athens versus Athens has always been one of the best understandings of the political sphere of ancient Greece. Most of these topics are polarizing, and just like in philosophy, maybe the only correct thing is in the gray zone between the two worst outcomes. And most people are so polarized nowadays that they do not even humor the idea that their side is wrong. I'm not pointing any fingers. I do not condone either side. I am just stating that as philosophy has developed, it has been heavily, heavily influenced by the political sphere that they were under. So we have the society expectation, we have the political affiliation of philosophy, and then last but not least, we have the religious implications of philosophy. Philosophy is the love of knowledge, broken down from philosophia. So, what you grew up, learned from, taught by, any church that you've went to, have preached moral values and have taught you their ideas from right and wrong. It is wonderful to see the broad spectrum. The ancient Greeks, I am most familiar with ancient Greek. They had a very particular way of addressing guests and hospitality laws, and that stemmed from gods coming down as mortals, and you would not want to get one mad. Modern example, and this is really funny, is Snow White. Not Snow White, Beauty and the Beast. Sorry. Beauty and the Beast. They did not, at the very beginning, whenever the Beast had his whole castle transformed, he did not accept a god into his home, and so he cursed him and his entire staff. Is that a little extreme? To us, yes. To a god, they're petty. The world has been heavily, heavily influenced by Judeo-Christian and Judeo-Islamic now beliefs. Nothing is wrong with those beliefs, but I am wanting everybody to acknowledge that our belief system is heavily, heavily influenced by the religions that are profoundly shown throughout life. One incorrect speech, one very strong opinionated person can drive the masses and drive lives into a beckoning call to their aid. And nothing is truly wrong with that until you take advantage of human lives and human kindness. War is one of the largest things that you will see in influence to thought. But that is also a societal expectation and a societal norm This, I know, has went on for a while, and it is a lot of rambling on this. But we need to take a step back, I feel, even for a moment, to take a deep breath and look at how we as a society have been influenced by the spread of religions and ideas. As the Silk Road was developed, we had the mass expansion of Buddhism and Hinduism. Hinduism in India was the number one idea for the caste system, along with imperial rule and imperial empowerment. It is, as a whole, a concept based on what you do and how you can move up, based on lines of morality. It is in Christian belief that we as people are inherently sinners, and what we do with our lives determines our final point. So we, as good Christians, strive to be as holy as we can be within our short lives. The spread of it is based on the idea that we only have so little time and so abrasive and contradicting thoughts that we are only to grow after. It is a wonderful, wonderful chance that I have to explore my own thought and to challenge thought of people who may disagree with me, who I am uncomfortable saying this to in person, such as friends and family who may stumble across this, but to challenge their ideas, not to hurt their feelings, not to damage their sense of pride and their sense of accomplishment, because that is not my point and not my goal. I want to provoke thought within everyone who may listen. And I want to thank everybody for tuning into this episode. I may keep these as 30-minute videos instead of an hour, just to have you guys sit and think on what may be coming in this next month. Yes, my birthday passed. I am 21 as of now. And hopefully this year everybody can look forward to, as the ideas and the philosophies of life may be changing in the very, very near future. Thank you. Memento Mori. I am WormFood.